Hey, Jason.
Hello, it's Jason Gordon from thatshelf.com here in Toronto. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much.
deJong.
I'm fascinated by your journey. I guess you went to OCAD and then did a whole bunch more training after that. But you've gone from the sort of straight up art world into this sort of virtual world. I'm wondering if you can talk about that, about the role of sort of traditional paint in the sort of computer environment.
Well, it's interesting because when I went to school in Toronto, I ended up going to New York and eventually ended up in LA. But I started in traditional painting for films, traditional matte painting
Right.
and model painting for motion control shots. Uh, then moved into computer animation, but it was through live action, ended up working and getting a lot of experience in visual effects, and then started working at Disney, and fell in love with the animation process, just magic. So it kind of took a dog leg. I didn't go to school to learn how to do it. I kind of worked practically to get
And I
myself.
guess, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt sort of briefly. I'm fascinated by that because so many people now coming into CGI just got their bones doing CGI, whereas you bring a sort of a traditional artwork background into the world of computer. And I think that the work, if you look at your credits, there's an astonishing artistry to it, to what you do, that I think some people, they do very good work, but I think that they lack that sort of tactile nature that some of your designs absolutely embody. I'm wondering if for you, that is something that you're seeing from new artists coming out that maybe don't have the traditional background that can bring to enhance the computer background.
Well, the people that I've met on specifically on this show, I found them in the UK. I hired them right out of school,
Mhm.
out of their graduate year, and the portfolios they showed me, they were digital and traditional.
Right.
They weren't focused to film. They were looking at a different type of work to put it into their career path, gaming. But I could see that there was something unique and that they had a flexibility, which I think is really important. It's very important to have your own style. But if you want to work on a lot of different types of film, you have to be a bit of a chameleon. So you have to embrace the vision that the director would like to head toward. And there's such a challenge in that, and that just keeps you fresh and excited because it's nothing is easy or simple, but it's always exciting.
As a film goer, I mean, I grew up adoring the works of the Michael Pangrazios of the world. Learn the end sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark being one of the more glorious matte paintings, going back to Citizen Kane and extraordinary matte work there. Your role as a matte painter and designer and model painter, how did that translate directly into becoming a virtual art director, an art director on a project such as this one?
Well, I think what the matte painting, because it was practical at the beginning, and then I went into digital at the very, very early stages of it. So there were very few traditional matte painters in Los Angeles, and it would just sort of lended itself to that. I mean, I can tell you there's a learning curve because it's uh, very different, but it all makes sense because I think if you know how to play, as we all do, but sometimes we forget, play with materials, tactile materials, you play on your computer, you play around with ideas, that all adds up to something that's kind of really different. And the thing is, this is probably the silliest thing you'll hear anybody say, but the hardest thing with working on a computer is there are no accidents.
Hmm.
Like you have to work really hard to make something look organic or like it's got a big paint splatter on it. So just paint it, scan it, put it in. So there's that sort of back and forth. That's the part I think is really exciting.
One of the things,
Uh,
again, not to dive too much into matte painting, but I'm fascinated. I rarely get to talk to people who have this skill set. What blew me away is if you see the matte painting, it looks fake. But if you see it integrated when it's filmed and when it's shot, it's absolutely real. And it's that division between making something look cinematic real versus actual real right in front of you. And I think so much with computer animation does the same thing. If it was simply procedural, if it was simply a model of the way that behaviors and actions in human beings behaved, it would look fake. But what you have to do in terms of this is stylize it in a way that we're responding to. If that's something that you've seen, go on, please.
Yeah, that is exactly the case. When I first started in matte painting back in the day, one of the people I was working with, this was the most astute thing I've heard in many, many years. He said, if you make a green dot and you put a shadow next to it, it's going to look like an apple. And it doesn't have to be more than a green dot with a little shadow. And I think that with matte painting particularly, it's very important to make sure the background marries with the foreground. So it either is purposely stylized for a point, but it can't be over designed or over detailed, or you'll miss the whole foreground. So there's that challenge to make sure that you're not putting there's always a danger of putting too much information in the background, because it's just a background. It's there to support the story and the action. So there's that balance. Yeah.
Which leads directly to computer animation, where you can literally, you have an infinite canvas, you have infinite possibilities, you have infinite textures that you could apply. But at some point in time, the more you put in, the worse it looks. And so I'm just wondering on this particular project,
yeah, it can interrupt your attention.
Yeah.
So I think this is an incredibly successful movie in focusing, because there's some very complicated visuals with a lot of characters, and having the backgrounds there to support the animation and the storytelling, keep it fresh, colorful, and exciting, but simple enough to feel like it's not yelling at you. So you're really focusing. And we have some very talented head of layout, camera people that did a fantastic job. But after all of that's done, then you can go back at the end and say, I want to move this bush, I want to move that curtain, I want to move this chair, so I've got a nice performance area. And that is part of it. So it's you have a lot of chances to make it pretty.
I mean, without giving too much away, I think that the way that the core sections were staged is incredibly beautiful, because you're doing really subtle things with lighting, with modeling, with character moments, and so it feels ominous. It's obviously an actuality of a virtual environment, but I think that one scene in particular erasing so much of what was going on before, but you still see these moments. I'm wondering, was that one of the bigger challenges?
It's a storytelling. I mean, when you start off with on a film, you look at the color script, like, just look at the mood. There are little bars of color with, quick designs, and you look at the film overall, and you make sure that you update it constantly as the story gets honed and tweaked a little bit here and there. Our story didn't change very much. It just got smoothed out and edited and then added to. But you look at that emotional curve, and that's how you choose your colors. And I also, without giving anything away, have a couple of very strong visual images in my head that I think are really powerful, because they link so well to the storytelling moment. And yes, it's important. It's all those little details.
Exactly, all the many little details that actually echo. I'm going to ask something that I when I get a chance to speak to digital artists, I am fascinated that the tools seem to have matured to a point that it seems you can do almost anything you want, that it's just up to budget and time. And yet there's clearly stuff that you would love to be able to do that maybe the tools are not sufficient to do. Is there something you would like to see, an evolution you would still like to see from your perspective, not only as basically an art director and supervisor, but also just as an artist in the digital medium?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Technically there's rendering issues, speed, the weight of models, and the kind of vegetation is very heavy. But that's computing power. Mm-hmm. And that all can be solved, right? I think the biggest challenge is time and budget, but really time. It's the time that if you have a set time, you simply must get somewhere. You have deadlines you have to meet. Having said that, there is nothing more effective than a deadline to keep you in your little sandbox. And if you know what your sandbox is, you just push out to the very edges and you get the most out of it. So I think, technology is always improving and speed is improving by leaps and bounds, certainly over this past pandemic experience where so much has improved so quickly. But it still goes back to that little box of speed and time. I mean, time and deadlines. I think that's the only thing that.
Yeah,
It
used to be we were waiting for developments like subsurface scattering. We were waiting for all these major developments. It seems like basically we can create water. We can do all of this stuff now. Now it's just a matter of how to use it in the same way that clay happened and oil paintings happened. And then all we need to do was make the painting. I'm just wondering if you feel the same way, that CGI technology has matured. We're waiting for the back end to catch up, but the artistry there, we just got to be artists. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I so agree with you. And I think that, if you mentioned water, I think the water, real water is available. Stylized water is difficult. It's kind of like stylized smoke or clouds. That's very difficult. But then again, that will catch up. It's totally achievable. It's just time consuming, very time consuming and very render heavy. But you have to make choices when you look at what is the most important part of the visual image that supports the story and the characters. So sometimes you need to make those compromises. In your perfect world, you'd have all those yummies, but sometimes you just can't have them. And no one is the wiser.
Final question. You mentioned working through COVID. I know this project was obviously a specific challenge because of that, because of the distancing. What specifically was done in a new way during this period about remote working, about remote rendering, about all the other elements? Was there something in a short way? What specifically did this project do, and might it carry over even in, God forbid, a post-COVID age?
Well, I can't speak to the technical side because that is something that deJong worked through, and I'm sure they had huge challenges. I think from my perspectives as an artist working on it, the bonus was that you could continue to work and be in a meeting and listen to everyone, but it wasn't stopping you from carrying on. And you're also far more connected because you can text someone and say, I need to share my screen, and boom, they're right there. So in so many ways, don't get me wrong, there are all the technical things, but it's in a communication part of it. It was actually easier to communicate because you could talk with someone specifically. You weren't leaving your desk and they go, yeah, I can. Yeah, you could say 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes. Yes, I've got 5 minutes. So that was an unexpected surprise.
Because we're the nerdiest of nerdy, I just got to ask, are you painting directly into Photoshop? Are you using Painter? Are you painting directly into Maya? What is your tool set now? You're not using oil and canvas.
I use Photoshop.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you're painting directly into Photoshop, a tool all of us know how to use, but don't know how to use quite as well as you do.
It's just practice. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the film. Thank you so much for your contribution, and it's a real inspiration to speak with you. Thanks so much.
Well, it's so much fun chatting.
Take care. All the best.
Bye.